Welcome back to What's the Skeet. This week we are talking about grief, healing, and the support you need after loss. Cruse Bereavement is here to support you. Grief is unique for everyone, and there's no set timeline for when you should reach out for help. Our guests today are John Whitehouse and Jack Blake. These fellas are going to talk us through the importance of asking for help in dark times and how they've been helped in the past by Cruse. So that's us, gentlemen. How are we?
Very well, thank you.
Living the dream as always.
What a glorious day.
I know.
Hey?
It's steaming in it.
Yeah, it's getting a bit warm already, isn't it? God knows what we're going to be like by the end of it. So, yeah, I basically thought we'd just start off and just get to know you guys, sort of explain a bit about who you are, what you do. So I think we start with you, Jack. So you're 18, I believe.
18, yeah, and then just finished A-levels, getting the results, so...
Nervous
Scary.
times ahead.
Yeah, a little bit. Everyone's on a bit on edge, I think, because everyone's messaging each other going, "Oh, have you got your results?" I'm like, "No." So I'm just like, "Don't talk to me." So.
And what have you been up to, John, anyway?
So work, and then I guess charity stuff. So Cruse is a kind of an increasing part of my kind of non-work time, I think.
And where do you sort of lie at Cruse then? What's your role if that's the case?
So as of a few weeks ago, I've now chair the board at Cruse.
Okay.
So joined the board back end of last year.
Yeah.
And just picked up the chairmanship.
Right, and how's that experience changing as you go along? Like, how do you feel going into that role?
A huge amount of responsibility, actually. So kind of, Cruse supports a huge number of people across the island, and I need to kind of do a really good job to make sure it continues to do that, along with the rest of the board and the team that Mary kind of leads in the organisation. Yeah.
Right, that's interesting, because as a chairman, it's a bit of a different role to someone who just sits there, I suppose. So what sort of role does a chairman take on a board meeting at a place like Cruse?
So I think kind of, for me, I guess kind of I'm just in the door as chair, so I need to kind of really kind of figure out kind of what that means for me.
Feel the water.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think there's two things. So we've got an incredible board. So it's kind of being that person who kind of pulls everything together from what's on the agenda, what are we covering through, to provide and support to Mary to make sure that Mary and the team. It's a really small team at Cruse.
Okay.
That they're getting some of the support that they need to be able to deliver what they need to deliver out to the individuals on the island that are receiving that support, really.
Yeah.
So really, I guess just finding my feet.
Yeah, seeing how it goes.
Yeah, absolutely.
That would intimidate. What about you? Would you feel intimidated going into a role as a chairman? Because I don't think I've ever. Yeah, I don't know how I'd feel about that.
I think I'm a wee bit young to be going in as chairman straight away, to be honest. I don't know how I feel about all that responsibility. I'd be like, oh, whoa.
There's a lot of responsibility on the old back, isn't it? And being around people who are dealing with bereavement as well is maybe tricky, I would suspect. Is it? Do you have to navigate those emotions in a certain way? I mean, you've spoke to people about bereavement before, Jack, and like we were saying before we got on here, how do you feel like that bit of talk can help the Isle of Man in general? Actually, is interesting. Either of you can answer that question. It's more of a conversational question, really. Yeah.
Well, I think it's about kind of letting people know that it's not. They're not always. You don't just have to keep it all bottled up, so to speak. What's the point in kind of not speaking about it? I think everyone gets quite complacent with being like, oh, nobody really, it doesn't really matter. People might not want to hear about it. I think as well, it depends who you talk to. I think some people kind of don't know how to react to that.
Yeah.
So I think telling people that there are also people out there who want to listen to it and that you can speak to is very important. And I think the more people that know that, the better, because mental health is, everyone talks about it nowadays, and I think it definitely needs to be more spoken about.
Yeah. And I'd say I agree with you there, and that's where your role as chairman, you maybe look at the Isle of Man and think where and how can we help these young people? Is that the way you guys sort of look at it as a board, or am I wrong in thinking that?
Yeah, no. So I think kind of so Mary and the team are doing a great job with kind of delivering that service, and the kind of bereavement volunteers who are kind of front and centre of the delivery of that. I think for me, from a chair point of view, it's kind of the thing I'm talking about in the board meetings is around sustainability. So and I'm looking at sustainability through two lenses, really. Kind of funding. We need best part of £250,000 per year to run the service, to to provide the support that's there. So kind of where does that funding come from? You know, it is a charity. It's not government funded. So where do we raise that money from each year?
Which is a challenging. That's a challenging one in itself, I'd imagine.
Yeah, absolutely. Some fantastic charities or kind of benefactors locally who support and provide some funding, but it's an annual challenge. As it is for lots of kind of third sector. So where do we get that funding from? And then the majority of the service that's provided is provided by volunteers. So, people who are working or whatever their kind of personal circumstances are giving up their own time to sit down with kind of service users who need that support, whether that's the children and young people, whether it's adults. It's kind of, where do we find those people who are prepared to give up their time, who are prepared to kind of actually, I'm not a bereavement volunteer. I've had lots of conversations with bereaved people previously. You take on a bit of that kind of that kind of personal stress that people have, and kind of, there's only so much of that you can do before you might need to kind of, actually, I'm going to have to time out here myself and just kind of look after myself, and then I can go back again. So
that's interesting, that, John. That's interesting. Now you mentioned that sometimes you need a bit of time out yourself if you're talking to people, that you take on a bit of their load to unload a bit of them, sort of thing. Is that what you're trying to say there?
Only so much you can put in the bucket,
and then it overflows.
Absolutely.
Right. And where do you think you find those type of people to help others talk about their problems, sort of thing? Do you need someone who's been through something to talk about the subject, or could it be anyone to go and talk about it? How would you think, Jack?
I mean, I think it's always better if you're talking to someone who's had a similar experience. I mean, at Cruse it was great. I mean, I went before my dad passed. I went before to kind of get relationships with people and ground myself with other people. And then I still talk to those people now. I'm still in contact with them. And I think it's great talking to people who have had the experience, but when it's new for others, talking to anybody can help, because, unloading it is important, but also kind of other people also needing to be aware of it is also important, because not everyone has a great day every single day.
Very true.
And sometimes, people, you get upset for no reason, and you don't really understand why, and sometimes people just having, even if they're like, oh, that's why, they don't need to ask you about it necessarily, but as long as they're aware of it, I think that's also important.
Incredibly important. 100%. I think that is vital, and you can sort of relate to someone in a way, can't you? If they've been through a similar experience. Do you think that's important, John?
So I think it can help, but I don't think you have to have. So I think kind of you have to have the personal skills to be able to empathise with somebody. It's a listening service. So kind of listening to people, giving them an opportunity to speak. So. My eldest two boys, they went along to Cruse Kids, kind of children and young people, following the kind of birth of our stillbirth of our daughter. And one of the biggest things for them, they were at an age where they're aware of their own kind of the impact of themselves on other people when they're talking about their own loss and their feelings and that. And what they didn't want to do was go and talk to somebody in the family about that, because they'd be unloading their own grief onto somebody who was themselves grieving. So being able to speak to somebody who wasn't related was really beneficial for them. But actually, the people they were speaking to hadn't been through a similar scenario, but they had the skills to be able to create that space for them to talk to them and kind of be in that kind of relaxed, comforting kind of environment. And Jackie would have probably experienced something similar in terms of.
I mean, going to Cruse was great, because actually I think they made an environment for you to be able to almost have the skills to open up to other people. So I think when it first happened, I didn't really want to tell anybody, because I was like, I don't know how to go about telling somebody about it. And when I went to Cruse, obviously they kind of always use that, go out and do an activity, gain friends with people, and then you'd also talk about the people that you've lost perhaps with them. And I think that's something that's really unique to Cruse themselves, because, again, I was part of Cruse Kids. I know John's sons. We did Cruse together, did the Venture Centre, Gorge Walk, and all that kind of thing. And when you gain a friendship like that with someone who's had a similar experience, you then also learn to be able to talk to others. So I talk to my family a lot about it.
Yeah.
And I think, again, that also, I think it just helps your mental state. You're not bottling it all up, but, again, you know how to talk to people about it.
Yeah, and do you think you learned how to talk to people about it from being around people who know how to talk about it?
Yeah.
Picking it up as you go?
Yeah.
Right, that's interesting, because I think the best way to learn sometimes is to watch, isn't it, and learn how to communicate these feelings. Is that quite often the difficult thing? Well, certainly from my side, anyway.
Yeah.
I certainly someone who struggles. I feel bad telling people about my problems because they're my problems. So it's that stigma around. Maybe I should actually let people know how I feel sometimes, and I think it's a problem that a lot of men feel.
Yeah.
More than, maybe slightly more so than women. Do you think? I'm not sure how to navigate that one. Men seem to
statistically, yeah.
Men seem to bottle their feelings up more than women do, and it seems like Cruse are making an effort at the moment to really help men unload those problems. Do you think that's? Am I correct in saying that, John?
Yeah, no, I think so, absolutely. So kind of, statistically, men will kind of speak less and that. So I think kind of just creating that environment where everybody's comfortable to chat. That's what it's about. So without the pressure, if you want to go along, particularly I guess on the kind of Cruse Kids side, it's kind of don't have to spend the whole kind of time speaking about grief. It could be whatever you had for tea last night or whatever. It doesn't need to be. But yeah, it's kind of, I think, kind of creating that environment where actually there's no judgment. You're welcome to kind of speak about whatever. It's kind of there's no right or wrong answer. We talk about kind of people who've had similar experiences, and whilst those experiences might have been similar, it's your journey. You're the person that's going through it. Kind of
Definitely.
Things that kind of might be a real trigger for some people won't be for another. So it's kind of that's the sort of thing where actually there's no right or wrong answer with a lot of it. It's your journey. You've got to go through it.
Yeah.
And being able to have that space to explore that and kind of, okay, what is that? What are those triggers for me? What is that journey? I think is really quite important for people.
Oh, totally. And actually knowing how much you want to feel like opening up when you're sat talking to somebody. How much do you want to, relax and actually let your guard down and see where your limits are. And I think now is the perfect time to sort of take it back and explain how you guys got involved with Cruse, to be fair. I think we start picking into that, and it'd be nice for the listeners to realise that you guys are involved for a reason.
Yep.
So, I mean, I'll let you guys completely take it away on that one, whoever wants to go first, and sort of explain how the involvement came around. I think it's dead interesting, and I'd love to hear it.
HP Pure Beauty, do you want to
go? Okay. Take it away, John. No joke. Okay, so I got involved with Cruse. I've been in Cruse since I was 9 to 10 years old, and I went before my dad passed. So I lost my dad 8 years ago now, I think coming up on 8 years ago or 9 years ago. And it was something that's very new, like what John said earlier. It's a very personal journey, and I think having the environment that Cruse had made, that's quite a unique thing, because again, I think half of the thing to open up to somebody is having a clear environment and a safe environment to do so. I wouldn't necessarily do it in a different setting. So I think, again, you're younger, you don't know how to kind of express your emotions.
Oh, totally. I agree with you there.
That's kind of why I thought, and obviously I was with my sister. So again, my sister helped me as well, because I think being on your own is also very difficult. So I was quite lucky in the fact that I had my sister and obviously everyone around at Cruse. But I didn't want to kind of just take that service and then be like, okay, that's it done, and then not do anything with it. I think it's important that other people get to use that service, and that's kind of why I got in touch with Mary, being like, is there an ambassador role where I can make a difference? I think that's always the important bit. How many people can you demonstrate this to, almost?
Yeah, and explain how they helped you in your experience around it. And as a young fella, how did you learn to manage those emotions? What did Cruse help you with in managing those emotions?
I think definitely knowing that you have somewhere to talk to if you want. I think having that availability to you, and having a friendly person who you can have a talk with, but then you can also, they understand and they want to listen to you, and they give you good advice on how to manage something. I think when you're younger, it's very difficult because you see everybody else. I think I found it quite difficult when I'd see other people with their dads being like, that kind of thing. I think I always got a little bit upset about that, but people at Cruse are like, but that's a normal thing to feel, and that's okay. And I think managing that was always almost, they always give you good advice. I think that's the main thing to say.
Yeah, definitely. That would have been tricky, because young people nowadays with social media and things like that, everyone's constantly comparing this person to that person, and through an experience like you've had, Jack, that must have I didn't quite see it like that, so to speak. It wasn't something that was highlighted that you walk around and you think, yeah, that would have been pretty tough. And what about you, John? How did you get involved?
Yeah, so kind of 2016, my wife and I had twins. Our daughter was stillborn. So at that point, our older two kids were 8 and 12.
Yeah.
So there was a fantastic kind of support through the kind of the Jane, with kind of some of the midwives that kind of provided really good support kind of right there and then, and what you do with the children and kind of, so in the end we let our oldest two children kind of hold Lottie, our daughter, and their sister, and that's all really emotional and everything, and kind of you deal with that in the kind of the heat of the moment at that point, having never really thought about that, as kind of as an expectant father, that's not an outcome that you kind of plan for.
Totally not.
So one of the things that they signposted Cruse Kids at that point, and kind of kind of probably embarrassed to say now that didn't really know about Cruse, and I think lots of people won't know about Cruse.
I didn't know about Cruse.
Won't know about it until
a few
you
weeks
need
ago.
it.
Yeah.
So the eldest two boys kind of went along to Cruse, and as Jack was saying, really they got a huge amount of benefit out of that. That environment to talk and kind of express their own thoughts and feelings and that, with no judgment, with some great kind of peer support. Kind of Cruse Kids kind of works on a one-to-one basis. There's group sessions. There's the annual kind of venture centre, which is I think that always goes down really well.
Highlight.
And like our 17-year-old, so he's been going now for 9 years, and he'll be back in September at the venture centre.
So did you go and talk to anyone as well, or no?
No, so I didn't at the time. I didn't feel, still don't necessarily feel that I need to. But I through various things that I've been involved in from a charity point of view, I guess I get it kind of vicariously, because I speak to people about my loss and kind of our experience of it. So I think I get that through other means, but I've seen firsthand the benefit that it brings to the oldest two boys in terms of they've created some really kind of genuine kind of lifelong friendships where everybody's experience is different, but actually they've gone through that journey and will continue to go through that journey, because it doesn't really end, it just changes. The support they've got and the difference it made to them is just phenomenal.
Definitely.
Yeah, and it's really as a consequence of that kind of kind of felt that kind of needed to kind of give back. How do we do that? Is it fundraising? Is it whatever it is? My wife was a bereavement volunteer for a time.
Oh, really?
So she's taken a break from that. Kind of needs to top
to
up her own
unload.
tank a little bit. But yeah, and then kind of the board role came up last year, and I kind of thought, well, actually, I can use the skills and experience I've got from business and kind of try and give my bit back that way.
Yeah, that's a nice way to give back, isn't it? And I believe that the term that sort of is being used at the moment is grief is unique for everyone, isn't it? Everyone deals
100%.
with it in their own way and manages it in their own way, and that's something that I wasn't familiar with until the last few weeks. Obviously, talking to Mary and then now talking to you guys, it's I've been thinking not a lot about it, but more about it since talking to Mary. And grief is unique for everyone was something that actually resonated with me slightly over a period, because I actually recognised that I was just doing things to deal with the problems that you had going on, if that makes sense, like a coping mechanism in a sense. So, for example, I'd go to the gym to get away from my thoughts. I feel like that's a beneficial way of, or exercising in general is a beneficial way of getting through. I mean, we were speaking off air before that you go to the gym because it's just good for your mind, isn't it?
Yeah, 100%. It's a good way to kind of just literally don't think about anything other than, just what you're doing. You can just completely forget about absolutely everything. And then you go back and you haven't solved any of your problems, but everything looks a little bit more manageable.
Yeah, and you're giving your mind a rest as well.
Yeah.
Totally. And it's trying to find, like we say, grief is unique for everyone, which is a cool phrase anyway. But it's interesting that for some people, a break is as good as just a break from those thoughts. Is not necessarily dealing with it, just a rest is very important, isn't it?
100%.
How else would you say you might have a break from those thoughts?
I think spending time around your friends is always really important, because I'm lucky that I've got a really supportive network. I've got Cruse, I've got my family, I've got my mates, and I think when you have a supportive network around you, doesn't matter if they know exactly in and out what's happened or not, having time to spend with them and completely just do something random. I mean, the amount of times me and my mate just go do random things, you don't really think about it that much. But then when you go back and you kind of process everything, you're like, okay, I feel like I can kind of get myself in a better place than what I was. And you can talk to them about it as well, just chuck something in a conversation, and then, just kind of goes on from there, really.
Yeah, moves forward, doesn't it? How would you say you've sort of, what's your techniques of helping yourself get around things, John?
So I think for me, kind of one of the things that's helped me is talking to other people about their grief. So through various different things I've done, kind of outside of Cruse as well, is kind of talking to other people who've lost babies and kind of young children.
Yeah,
and
that's a
neonatal,
unique experience, isn't it?
Yeah, and it's kind of I've met some really amazing people over that time, and kind of the thing that I'm kind of like's the wrong word, right? But kind of the thing that's been kind of really encouraging is kind of 2016. It's not all that long ago, although you were a baby at that point, Jack. It's not that long ago, but I've seen a massive difference. It was much more of a taboo subject 2016 than it is today.
In general, as a whole,
I would say I'd say in general.
Yeah.
I think kind of people are talking about mental health more, and that's real. It's real life. People suffer in different ways. People are talking about all of the things that contribute to mental health. Grief being one of them. So the bit for me is actually talking to people and trying to create that safe space that people have had to kind of to talk about their own experience. And there's a few of those kind of conversations I've had that kind of really strike a kind of a chord with you in terms of we were really fortunate. We got time with our baby. We had kind of 2 or 3 days with Lottie before we kind of said farewell. But I've spoken with parents who they may have lost their babies in the 70s or 80s, where baby was basically kind of taken off them there and then, and they were kind of patted on the back and sent home, and it's kind of like, okay, I have no idea how you would have coped with that at all.
9 months of that thing cooking in there, and the next one is gone. It's like, how do you get your head around that?
I can't. I look back on those few days that we had with only really positive memories, because they're the time that we got to spend. So but talking to people who didn't have that, it's kind of and for many of them actually it's the first time they've spoken about it, and they may have kept that bottled up for the last 30 years, and then see something that gives them that opportunity. And I think from a Cruse point of view, Cruse don't mind whether you're 6 months after that loss or you're 6 years after that loss. It's kind of it's what's the right time for you.
Yes.
Based on your journey.
There's never a right time, is there? At the end of the day, you kind of just know. It sounds like really kind of not helpful if you you turn around and go, when's the right time? Well, you just know. That's not very helpful. But you kind of, you do kind of, though, you do start thinking, it's like, what if I did talk to someone about this? And I think that's kind of when it's really important to reach out. Another thing I'd say with dealing with it is similar to what John does. I feel like helping people is always a really positive way, because it is a negative situation, but there's, again, it's hard to see it in the moment, but there's always a positive thing that comes out of it, whether or not that be you help somebody else, or you just think of all the positive things that you did with that person. The amount of stupid things that we did together, and I'm lucky enough that I remember. Some people don't get that opportunity, and sometimes it's like, what, yes, it's not a great situation, but there are people who are worse off than me.
Yeah.
So if I can do anything to help other people in that situation, like you said, whether or not they are my age or, they could be 50, like you said, grief hits everybody very different, and how people manage it is very different.
Totally. And if someone came up to you now on the Isle of Man here, walking through Strand Street, or someone that you knew, and said, maybe I need to talk to someone, what direction would you guys sort of point them in right now, if that makes sense? You know, like how do you refer to Cruse sort of thing? How would, if someone came up to you, John, and said, "Listen, man, been struggling a little bit. How can I get help?" Where would those people go?
So I'd be giving them the telephone number for Cruse, telling them to give them a call. The team in the office will kind of get you registered and kind of will get you seen as kind of quickly as we possibly can, and kind of the timeline ebbs and flows a little bit as kind of kind of depending on how many referrals and that there are, but kind of give them a phone call, get your name on the list, and we will get you in as quickly as we can.
Right. And where do people go? Where do people go to talk? Like, is it in Douglas, the centre, so to speak, or where do people go to get the help sort of thing?
Yeah, so most people go down to the office down in Tremode.
Oh, yes, okay.
Yeah, so
right.
kind of most people meet in the office. Some people do it over the phone. Kind of there's different models. Try and make it as accessible for people as is kind of humanly possible, really.
Right.
Not everyone kind of goes in straight away, I think. Sometimes it's, it's all, when you're sat there face to face with someone telling them, sometimes it's kind of warming them into it almost. It's like, it takes a lot of courage to go talk to someone about something that's very, very personal. And then I think sometimes, that's why it's great that you can phone in, because sometimes people might just want to tell them on the phone because they don't feel confident enough yet to then go in. But it's how you kind of then get them confident enough to be like, we can help you with this.
Right. And then how important is the type of room that you talk to? Do you guys make an effort to make sure that it's is it a nice type of room? What sort of environment do people feel comfortable in to talk about these problems?
So, Cruse have recently spent a fair amount of money kind of making the environment really comfortable. So kind of, soft seating, kind of nice colours. Kind of Mary's kind of definitely brought her fling to the colour palette in the office. But it's a I'd say it's a homely kind of comfortable environment. Really, it's kind of I don't think you want something that's overly sterile. You need to be comfortable.
Yeah.
And I think those that first time through the door, it's kind of, what am I going to experience?
Yes.
And I guess, and Jack, you'll know better than me because you went to it. But if you know you're going to go in and talk about a subject that's really quite raw to you, then that comes with a kind of fear, I think, for people.
100%. I remember being terrified going to my first time at Cruse Kids, and we were going with other people, and I was with my sister and my family. I was absolutely terrified because I was like, oh, what if I get asked this, and what if people start asking me about me? I'm like, I don't really want to talk about it. And it's like, I see people go in. Like I was in the office with Mary and Mark. I think we'd just done a talk that's up on the website where I talk a bit about me, and it's like, I seen other people go in there, and it's like, I understand where you're coming from. It's a scary thing to just walk into an office,
man.
And then knowing that somebody's gonna ask you almost, how do you feel? But like you said, I think that's nerve-wracking enough. And like what John said, if you've got a very homely environment, straight away you're not looking everywhere like, oh, what's this? Is all very new. If it's all very calming, you only have to focus on one thing, and that's just kind of just calming yourself down a little bit and be like, this is okay. There's nothing scared. There's nothing to be scared about with it. I think a lot of people are like, oh, they're going to ask me really intrusive questions. It's not like that. You tell them what you're ready to tell them. And then as you kind of get more confident, and if you have other issues with it, then again, that support is there if you need it and if you want it.
Yeah. And that's what makes it important, isn't it? And I think that the Isle of Man as a whole is known to be 10, 15 years behind everywhere else around the world. And how do you feel like the Isle of Man helps a charity like this? Is it you'll know better, John, or just recently being on the board and being in business. What's the Isle of Man like as a place where charities are?
So I think the Isle of Man's kind of massively generous, but there's massive competition. There's kind of there's over 700 odd charities on the island. So
how many?
700 odd charities on the island. So and everybody kind of feels the pinch to a certain degree, don't they? In terms of we won't get into cost of living and all that good stuff, but it's kind of that people are very generous. But at the same time, people want to be generous to a whole host of kind of really worthy charities. So it's kind of it's difficult to raise cash.
Constant battle in a sense, because it was 700 charities. That is bananas on such a small place. Do you guys, what sort of fundraising does Cruse do? How do Cruse try to overcome that challenge, so to speak? Like between the pair of you, you must have done some fundraising in the past.
So I've not been as an ambassador for Cruse for that long, but the events that I've been attended, I did a video on the website for Cruse, kind of just to kind of get a bit of a message out there that I think a lot of people again think about it in a way that you don't necessarily see somebody who's younger, if you will, talking about their experience.
Yeah.
So I think the fact that there is a video out there, I think again, if people want to watch that and kind of get a bit of a taste of what it actually means for some people, that's important. But I did a speech at a black tie event, and again, just general charity fundraising, M&S and all that kind of thing. I think it's important in that.
Yeah. And there's Black Tie event, 21st of November.
Nice. I'll have to be there. I'll come along for a little jolly to that, I think.
Yeah, so that's always a good fundraiser and a good fun night as well. Actually.
Yeah, definitely.
I think kind of Jack brought a few people to tears last year. I think with it.
I would never do such a thing.
Waterfalls going everywhere.
You can argue my luck was just too good.
But it's important that the Manx public is engaged with the charity, isn't it? And it's given a place that you guys can speak freely, because I think that is sometimes half the battle here on the Isle of Man, is trying to get the message out there so that enough people actually know what's going on and what's coming up. And like you say, you've got a dinner coming up. How can you guys then go, right, let's get this message out there and push it out there as far as possible, isn't it, to the Manx public, and see how they go, I think.
Being in the community is the most important thing.
Yes.
It's all well and good setting up a charity and, doing different events, but if you're not kind of going to the public in general, and if you're not actually speaking to the public in general, you're not really going to get as much traction. And that's why, again, I think what we do is quite important, where you go and you're talking to people just on the street and stuff. And that's also quite important as well.
And it's that opportunity in the lift, kind of like, what do you do? Okay, well, actually, I'll not talk about what I do professionally. Can you give us a tenner? And kind of, and things like the parish walk and stuff like that. There's always people kind of prepared to kind of do a few miles and raise a few pound. And they're good. They kind of raise money. They raise some awareness and kind of put it out there and that, which is great.
Ideal, isn't it? So where can people find, Charlie? Let's start wrapping this thing up. Where can people find where they can donate, find you guys on Facebook, or what sort of areas can people find you guys at? Well, Cruse Bereavement, so to speak, not John Whitehouse and Jack.
I was going to say, hang on. I didn't sign up for this.
Mary signed you up for this.
There's the office at Tremode. There is the website that's online, so that's cruse.org, I'm fairly sure. There you go, cruse.im. And then social media, so on Facebook as well. So all of our social medias and stuff are out there for people to find.
Yeah, just search Cruse Bereavement Support Isle of Man.
Everything
and
will come up.
You'll find all the links.
Bingo.
So,
nice. Kind of, and then always at the end of these podcasts, we always wrap them up with the same question. I know you might have done your research, Jack. You might not have done. But the final question is, to wrap this thing up, is if you guys could change one thing about the Isle of Man, what would it be and why? And obviously we've had a very in-depth conversation in here to a touchy subject, so it can be related to that if we like. It's just basically to create an environment that allows change and ideas, and you never know what comes out of this sort of question. So whichever one wants to go first, take it away. And if you could change one thing about the Isle of Man, what would it be and why?
Tread lightly. Jeez.
Go ahead, John. You kick us off.
So, one thing about the Isle of Man that I would change. So, what's that going to be?
He's picking through the list.
He's got to keep.
What is it? So,
it's such a broad question, though, isn't it?
So actually, I think kind of one of the go back to the 700 odd charities that the island has. I think kind of let's really get behind the charities that we need to support. Let's kind of we've got multiple charities for the same thing. Let's kind of work together as a third sector. Work together as a third sector really, really closely, and let's share that purse a little bit better, so that actually that money's getting to the people that need it.
Yes.
Whether that's funding services, whether it's actually money going to individuals or different charities, but actually let's get that kind of purse shared a little bit better, so that we're making the biggest bang for our buck kind of across the third sector.
I like that. Let's go, Jack. What have you got here? I don't know where we're going here. I'm actually kind of nervous that I asked you this question.
I was debating.
It could go anywhere here.
No. I was debating about a car thing, and I was like, maybe I wouldn't do such a thing.
20-mile-an-hour speed.
How did you know? No. Do you know what? I'll piggyback off of John's one. I think I'll say, do you know what? In the car, everyone listens to the radio. Everybody does. Even if it's a thing where, you even just have a little bit maybe on the adverts. You always hear the adverts on there, where instead of having to always, paying for quite a high price for adverts, maybe even having a couple of minutes where, you promote something like this, because, it's all well and good, the amount of stuff that we do as a charity, but, sometimes even just on your way to work, not everybody hears us through, our events. Sometimes it can be just in the car.
Yeah.
And then, people might be like, you know what, I'll remember that and I'll go down. So maybe something on the radio or something like that.
Yeah.
The radio
Reminding people about mental health and how important it is to talk. It's a good idea, Jack. I like that. I actually really like that. Thank you very much for coming to talk to me, gents. I hope that's been an enjoyable conversation. It's certainly a subject that's difficult for me to talk about, because I'm not one that talks a lot myself. But no, I really appreciate you guys coming on here. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Cheers, Herb. Happy days.